A school district official says it is now an act of psychological violence to mispronounce someone, and the Pentagon promotes critical race and gender theories. All of that and more here on The Bald Brad Show. Welcome to The Bald Brad Show. It is Tuesday, November 22nd, and as always, support the show by hitting that like and subscribe button, as well as leaving your opinions in the comment section below regarding anything that we cover in today's episode. Your help and support would be greatly appreciated. And with that being said, our lead story of the day is a school district official declares that using the wrong pronouns is an act of psychological violence that needs to be dealt with accordingly. Folks, this one's going to make your head spin, and we have talked about it. And coming from an educator and a teacher, this worries me greatly. A Rhode Island elected school board official involved in promoting a diversity, equity, and inclusion agenda in the district recently came under fire for claiming that intentionally misgendering someone is an act of violence that needs to be dealt with accordingly. This is how the left views all this stuff. If you say something they don't like, if you say something that hurts their feelings, what they call microaggressions, which is purely subjective, it is now an act of violence that is no different than you physically striking them. That's how they view this stuff. Jennifer Lima, elected member of the North Kingston School Committee, shared a social media post from an activist group on November 12th that read, "Purposefully misgendering students is an act of violence. Respond accordingly." Lima added to the shared post, "I recognize that some may find the use of the word violence in this post extreme. But again, the left are extreme. That's why we've done the Bald Brad Show. That's why Ben Shapiro has his show. That's why he also has a Daily Wire to go against the extreme left. Quote, any act of violence in our school which creates an unsafe environment physically or emotionally by or for any member of the school community needs to be dealt with accordingly." This is scary because they're taking speech as an act of violence. And if something that you say is taken the wrong way from somebody else, it is now an act of violence and needs to be dealt with accordingly. What is that accordingly? You need to be censored or removed from the classroom. Even though there was no intent behind it, somebody just might have taken something the wrong way, meaning you saying everyone rather than he or she, just to be safe. Somebody might not claim to be involved in that everyone because they're non-binary or something along that spectrum, and now you just screwed yourself, and now you're ousted as a teacher. And people think I'm kidding. As a teacher in the classroom, you guys, I am telling you, I have been in trainings in the past where if you mispronounce somebody, you have the possibility of being fired. I have friends that are teachers that have been told the same thing. It's not a joke. This is a real deal. Now you're at the point where you could say anything, and as long as they snuff out that you're conservative Republican, you could be let go. You could be a phenomenal teacher, never do anything wrong, and you could be let go. Lima was constantly slammed online by critics who interpreted her post as advocating a violent response to use incorrect pronouns. In a statement from Fox News Digital, Lima explained, quote, "I also believe that purposefully misgendering someone is an act of psychological violence when done deliberately and consistently and should be responded to accordingly," which goes again in the realm of policing speech. I get the idea of you want to be called a name and that's bothering you. Like, obviously my first name's Brad. If somebody continually called me Jennifer or some other name that I don't want to be called, of course it's going to bug the hell out of me and I find that very disrespectful. But that's not what we're talking about here. Students will screw with you. I'm not saying every student's going to do this, but I'll give you a scenario, and what I've talked about a lot on the Bald Brad Show is that some students will wear hair braids, they'll wear a certain color shirt, a certain color wristband, fingernail polish. I mean, anything that signifies a color. Some students will do this. And what they'll do is they will switch their genders during class. Like, they'll go to the bathroom and switch out their bracelet, their hair braids, something that is a signifier to you of what they want to be called. You have 210 students. Some of those students are, trans or whatever it may be. And you may or may not know that, by the way. They don't have to tell you what their pronouns are. So now you're kind of seeing the grand scheme of the big problem with all this. They can switch out their braids, their bracelets, whatever it may be. And you have to somehow catch on to that, grab a hold of that, and make sure for the rest of that class or school day, whatever it is, that you call them by the correct pronoun. And then what they can do 5 minutes later, go switch out another bracelet. Now they want to be called something else because they're fluid. They're non-binary. They switch back and forth. This is the crazy world we live in, you guys. Especially as educators, you're setting us up for failure. Lima clarified that she believes appropriate responses to someone using the wrong pronoun included investigating and disciplining such occurrences in such a way as any other bias-based assault. That is wild, folks. So as an educator, if I accidentally call you something that you don't affirm with, now I've just assaulted you. This is where they're going with all this. Lima noted that she does not believe her post suggests that using incorrect pronouns should be met with violence. Yes, let me just reread that. Lima noted that she does not believe her post suggests that using incorrect pronouns should be met with violence. But that's how it's going to be treated, is that you mispronouncing somebody, you're committing violence upon somebody else, but you're just telling, hey, it should not be met with violence. Nicole Solas, a senior fellow with the Independent Women's Forum, disagreed with Fox News Digital, or disagreed and told Fox News Digital, rather, if you believe you're under threat of violence, listen to respond accordingly means that you act in self-defense, which is a physical and often violent action taken to protect yourself. This is wild, you guys. This is real wild. Her public call for students to respond accordingly to non-existent violences in her own tactic call for violence against those who oppose her radical ideology. She creates a hostile, paranoid school environment where violence is now more likely to happen thanks to her hysterical message that danger lurk around every pronoun. Lima previously faced a failed recall effort in 2021 launched by a Gatsby Project, a Rhode Island-based nonprofit. The group accused Lima of pushing anti-racist policies and a Marxist agenda, which is typical to progressive left. We see a fascist, communist, socialist, Marxist agenda spread out through all. They claim it's not real. They claim that they're not, even though Black Lives Matter themselves has leaders of the Marxist agenda, per their own words. But this is how far the left has taken our education system. Not only are they trying to grab a hold and indoctrinate your children based on these leftist progressive ideas, not only are they trying to teach them critical race theory, that regardless of their skin color, they're just racist. If they're white, there's nothing they can possibly do about it. And race is inherent within all interactions. That goes more than that, trust me. Not only are they teaching your kids that even though they're male, they could be a female. As long as they take hormone and puberty blockers, they're going to be okay. If they want to get their breasts removed or their genitals being just absolutely mutilated, that's gender affirming care. You should be taken care of on that end. It's okay if your parents don't know. All this stuff is taking place in the classroom. And there were a lot of people that still voted Democrat in the midterm because they don't think either this is happening or they are okay with this stuff happening. This is crazy, you guys. And then they can't fathom why there's a mass exodus of teachers. We just want to go do our job. I don't want to indoctrinate any kid. I don't want to affirm their gender or anything like that. I just want to teach mathematics. I want to be respectful to all my students, show them that I love them and I support them in their academics and I respect them. I just want to teach math. I don't want to mispronounce somebody. I don't want to have to keep 1,000 different pronouns in my mind. I have 210 missing gaps of knowledge of students that they have in their mathematics. You extrapolate that out over 8 years of academics within mathematics. Now I got to somehow figure out how to teach everybody the mathematics per the standards of California State. On top of the fact, now I have to fill all these missing gaps of knowledge and a bunch of other litany of other things. And now they want to pile on that I have to memorize all these pronouns that somebody wants to be called. They, them, he, she, zer. I can't do that, you guys. You're setting me up for failure, and I don't want to be set up for failure. I want to be set up for success, because if I'm set up for success, odds are the student's going to be set up for success. But right now, when we're policing speech and it's all subjective and you accidentally mispronounce somebody, all of a sudden that's equivalent to me creating violence upon you. All of a sudden I've somehow assaulted you, and now I'm going to be fired or thrown in jail or something along those lines later on in the future, because that's the direction that we're going, folks. I need to know what you all think about this. You are mostly parents, or you're going to be parents, or you were parents in the past. Am I speaking out of line here? Am I going too far to think that I should be very nervous when this is going on? You saw it from Jordan B. Peterson. I mean, that's literally why he was kind of shot up into fame, was because the Canadians were trying to suppress his speech. We're trying to tell him what he could and couldn't say. This is where we are going. And this is one of the reasons why, just one of the many reasons why you have a mass exodus of teachers, because they don't want to have to police their speech all the time. I'm saying there's a gradient of that, okay? I'm not saying you just don't get to say whatever you want in the classroom, but I also don't want to be fired for saying something that somebody would take as violent, or they would misunderstand what my words are or take it the wrong way, which is called microaggressions for anybody that's new. So let me know what you think about this story, folks. This is crazy. This would, if this ever got put into effect, this would drive me out of teaching. I would just go back into accounting, because that's nuts. Moving into our second story of the day. If you haven't already, hit that like and subscribe button. Folks, I hope you're sitting down for this one, because it's going to piss you off. We really knew about this, but it's kind of a recirculation of this story here from Fox News, where the Pentagon is promoting critical race theory and gender identity insanity theory. I love the words insanity, because that's what it is. If you want to destroy this country, yes, do what you're already doing, you progressive leftist. But once you take a hold of our military, it is game over. It's just game over. Okay, the ones that are supposed to protect us from a foreign adversary or abroad. I understand on an individual level, that's us, we the people, but that's also the military. And once you start injecting all these race, gender theory, critical race theory, and all this other stuff, it just dismantles the whole system, just the whole system. This should terrify everybody. The Biden administration has launched extensive diversity and equity initiatives in the military that have popularized elements of critical race theory and gender identity and significantly weakened the U.S. Armed Forces, according to a report obtained exclusively. What's interesting, and forgive me, I can't remember the general's name. He was questioned on this by Congress if this was happening. He said no. And then they went even further and said, well, you're showing these books. You're telling people to read these books. This is what you're pushing. He said, no, it's not happening. This is a main general of the military. And now we have this taking place. Our military's singular purpose is to provide for the common defense. It sounds like what I just said. Of our nation, the report said. It cannot be turned into a left-wing social experiment. It cannot be used as a cudgel against America itself. And it cannot be paralyzed by fear of offending the sensibilities of Ivy League faculty lounges or progressive pundits. Yeah, that's a great freaking quote. The world is a dangerous place, and the Biden administration's insanity is eroding our greatest source of security in it. 100% agree. 100%. I mean, it's as if Biden's agenda is literally just to degrade and just evaporate a lot of components of what makes America great, especially our energy sector. Just look at that entire field right now. He is crippling it. Oh, but we're going to build wind and solar, folks, but we don't want to build nuclear. We don't want to build nuclear power plants all around the United States, which is clean energy. We don't want to do that, but let's build wind and solar because that's going to power the grid. That's going to power everything. California can't even figure out how to power the homes every year. And they go, well, we're going to throttle you down because it's too hot, or we're going to throttle you down because it's too cold. It's the same thing every single year, and they can't even do that. But don't worry, folks. We're going to build electric vehicles. I know I'm on a side tangent here, but we're going to build electric vehicles even though our power grid can't take care of it. They literally told Californians to not charge their electric vehicles because the power grid couldn't handle it. But in the next 5 or 6 years here, they want to have predominantly 50% of all vehicles sold, new vehicles, to be clean energy, meaning electric vehicles. Just let that one fathom in. But now this is what they're doing with our military here, just injecting all this stuff in them, which is just going to fracture our military, create division, because that's what leftism does. That's what gender ideology does. That's what ultimately critical race theory does. It's going to break the system down. The report from Senator Marco Rubio and Chip Roy details how the military has allocated resources to root out extremism within its ranks as it promotes predominantly left-wing ideas on race and gender. This includes documentation on how military employees promoted critical race theory and espouse anti-white views. That is freaking wild. Again, it's the documentation on how military employees promote critical race theory and espouse anti-white views. Now, if you just flipped any other race in there after the word anti, how would that be acceptable? Anti-black views espouse anti-black views, anti-Asian views, anti-Hispanic views, Latino views, all that. How is that? But because it's white, it's okay. Because the white man did so many horrific things throughout human history, they deserve it. Now their punishment's coming into effect. For example, less than a month after his appointment by President Biden, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin directed commanding officers and supervisors at all levels to schedule a day to discuss extremism. However, a report from the Biden administration, quote, countering extremist activity working group, later identified fewer than 100 cases of extremism, get this, from a 2.1 million active forces, a rate of 0.005%. Not decimal. It is a decimal, but in terms of, you're not just looking at a ratio, you are looking at a percentage, which I understand is a ratio within itself, but 0.005%. That is wild. But this is where they want to focus. And this is what the left does. They focus on these outliers and they grab a hold of these outliers and say, well, there's extremism out there. They do the same thing with race. Well, there's racists out there. So there's institutional racism. It's interwoven within all our major institutions. And if it's involved in all our major institutions, then it's involved in all our laws and the fabric of our social society. And so now we need to take care of it and we need to deal with it, even though it is not a major problem, but they're going to push it out there as if it is one. The report finds that instructors and military academics use anti-racist approaches to education that directs soldiers to center their understanding of American society on an acknowledgement of its racist past and present, the report said. That is literally critical race theory, by the way. The Department of Defense, however, has emphasized it does not teach critical race theory and is focused on challenging its military students intellectually and rooting out extremism. Even though They're going to push this whole thing about anti-racist approaches. They're going to teach critical race theory and say that they're not doing so. We see this from the progressive left all the time. Even though it's not a major issue, you have less than 100 cases out of 2.1 million. They're still going to push it. And that's how they do it. That's how they, and it drives me up a wall because I'm so tired of people using outliers out there to describe the data set as a whole. It's not a major issue. It's not a problem within our military. So why deal with it? Do you want to know why to deal with it? Because it's a progressive left wanting to fracture our military and inject their propaganda, their lies, their fictitious viewpoint of what reality is upon our military, because they're already doing it to our children. They're already doing it in our corporations. Now they're doing it in books and everything else. I'm not saying they don't have the right to do the books. Everybody has the right to free speech, but now they're doing it to our military. Quote, rather than making the case for American greatness and protecting our nation, the military is parroting woke nonsense, Rubio told Fox News Digital. It's dumb and it doesn't work and it's dangerous. We need to spend more time thinking about how to counter Chinese aircraft carriers and less time thinking about pronouns. 100% agree, but that's not going to stop the progressive left of doing what they're doing. I hope you're all awake to this. I'm not just trying to scare you. This is a massive problem. There is real evil out there in the world. I understand racism is evil. I agree. White supremacy, it is evil. I agree. There's evil people out there. 100% agree. In America, the things that they're talking about here, of these like MAGA Republicans and these extremists, white supremacists, racists, all these things, they do exist. Certain extremist things do exist. I don't think MAGA Republicans are extreme, by the way. I would be considered a MAGA Republican. I'm going to probably vote Trump a third time. But I'm not racist. I don't like white supremacy. I don't like certain things that promote evil or anything like that. I'm a Christian. I just want godly things to take place. That's not what the left wants. Hell, the left wants to get rid of religion. But there is real evil out there. Look at what Putin's doing to Ukraine. Look at what Iran wants to do to Israel. I mean, literally, there's countries out there that want to exterminate, by all definition, exterminate the Jews. That's what countries want. There is real evil out there. There's men and women that are gang raping people in the Middle East, throwing their children in fires and taking them out and making the women eat it in front of them. Meaning they're making the women that just had their baby eat the baby that's just thrown in the fire after just being gang raped. This stuff is really happening. But this is the stuff that we want to focus on here because there's less than 100 cases of 2.1 million, and it deserves all our efforts here in promoting this stuff. This is how you see the downfall of the republic. This is how you see the downfall of America, folks. If you look at human history, it rinses and repeats itself. This is a scary, scary thing for all of us. And my hope is that somebody in our military wakes up and says, this is a bunch of nonsense. Focus on protecting, focus on what makes our military great, and forget about all this nonsense. Another question here, folks. What do you think about all this? I'm genuinely interested. I'm not just trying to do this to create more engagement with YouTube. I mean, that is part of it, of course. But we are a community here, and I want to see if my thinking is in line here with Republican and conservative values, because this is nuts. This is dangerous. This is nuts. When you got China wanting to invade Taiwan, when you got Iran wanting to basically extinguish the West, when you got basically all the surrounding areas of Israel wanting to wipe them off the face of the earth, wipe them completely off the map. I mean, there's real evil out there, and we're spending our time dealing with this bull crap? Really? Let me know what you think about all this in the comments below. Thank you so much for always supporting The Bald Brad Show. Hit that like and subscribe button, share with your friends and family, and I'll see you tomorrow here on The Bald Brad Show.